So what we have here is a grown out slice and smudge, and we're going to be going in and I'm changing it up today and showing you my slice no smudge technique. She's going to be nice and bright by the roots. Normally she does a more lived in look, but today we are going to make her really bright up there. The sectioning is going to be largely the same as the dimensional slice and smudge placement. So we're going to go around the part in the mohawk, and then we're going to do the one big section in the back and around the ears. But what we're doing differently over here is I'm just going in and I am taking wispy little pieces around the hairline, and I'm going to do 3 separate foils. So I'm going to back comb lightly, starting here at the nape, and I just gently pulled pieces out of the hairline so it looks really organic. And I'm going in with my Frimar Power Painter. I'm using 10 volume right now. And then I'm going to go in and get these side pieces just so when she wears her hair up, it's going to be a nice detailed hairline. And I'm actually flipping the foil and painting onto her head. That's something I've been doing a little bit differently lately with these pieces. I always find it so difficult to get that hairline and not have the foil slip, so this really helps with that. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And now I'm going to be going in and taking horizontal sections. I'm using the Pink Pewter Never Let Go comb, and I really like it for back combing. So I'm gently back combing. I'm using my Pink Pewter comb to hold it in place. You don't have to use this comb, but I think it works really well for that. And I am just kind of detailing it a little bit more than I typically do, just because we are not doing a root smudge today. So I don't want it to look absolutely ridiculous, but I'm going to work my way up the back of her head. And it's been a long time since we did a full on her. We've just been doing partials, so she has a lot of grow out here in the back. And I am gently just painting, and I'm feathering it up a little bit, but I want to still make sure that my saturation is on point. So the lightener that I'm using here is called the King's Bleach, and it's 9+ levels of lift, which I really, really like it. It's got Plex in it, so it keeps the hair nice and healthy. It's something new that I have been trying out. It supposedly could give 12+ levels of lift under heat, but I don't put stuff under heat because it's not my jam. But the hair really stays nice and healthy. So I'm using that. As you could see, it's not as thick as some other products, but it keeps it really like holds its moisture so that it doesn't dry out, and it just continues lifting for as long as you need it to. So I'm still working with 10 volume here. And again, I am gently back combing. The thickness of my sections, that's completely up to you. My sections are, I mean, I wouldn't be able to read a newspaper through those sections, but they're not insanely thick either. Wouldn't know an exact measurement, but you can kind of tell in the video how thick they are. I have noticed that a lot of people, so her ends are already light. Things would be a little bit different if her ends weren't already light. So definitely keep that in mind. But because they are already light, I don't need to overfoil in the back. I see so many people overfoiling the back pieces when they don't need to be doing that. It's okay to leave a little bit of dimension in those in-between pieces back there. So I'll leave about 1/4 of an inch, sometimes even 1/2 an inch in between each section going up the back. I tend to kind of make them closer together as I get toward the crown. Like these sections are going to be a little bit smaller as I work up toward the crown, but I think a lot of times people overdo it in an area up the back that doesn't really ever show, if that makes sense. So these sections I am saturating the underneath part of the section, and then I am going in and painting the top part of the section as well, just for the sake of saturation and even lift. Now I'm going in the sides, those little sections behind the ears, and I'm going in and I'm gently painting those after I back comb them. These are just those little triangles, again, just so when she wears her hair up, she is not going to have anything weird going on or any dark spots. Now for the side here, I am leaving out about 1/2 an inch around her face. Those pieces are really, really fragile, so I'm going to wait on those. And I'm just going in and taking horizontal slices. Now these are pretty thin. So you want to make sure that you saturate really well. And then I'm going in and I'm locking my foil. And I'm going to be working my way up this side section with horizontal slices. And again, these slices are definitely thinner than the ones that I took in the back. And we're going to get a lot of lift. I'm actually still working with 10 volume at this point. And I'm not painting the underneath because these pieces are so thin. I actually would be able to read through these slices. Just barely. And see, I go in and I lock it. That's going to prevent any bleeders and prevent the foil from slipping. Something to be conscious of is not to overlap the existing blonde. That's why you'll see me painting with caution, and I'm being pretty precise with my brush. I am using a Frimar Power Painter. In this case, I use that for a lot of my services. That's the type of brush I use. It's a larger paintbrush, so I can really kind of get a lot of product on. And it's really essential in this area, since we're not going to be doing a smudge today, that we are working on diagonals and we're taking a little bit of smaller sections than we normally would. But that doesn't mean that you need to overfoil. Actually, because her ends are already light, there's no need in this area to really pack in the foils. We're going to be doing plenty of that in the mohawk area, which is going to be the most important. Now, as I work my way toward the top of this section and the section on the other side, I'm going to be making them less and less diagonal and kind of start working toward a horizontal. This client is a friend of mine, and she is very much enjoying her chewing gum. Now for my last section of this particular area, you could see it's pretty small, and I just very, very gently back combed it, and I will push my comb against the foil very lightly and just continue to do that just so it's well blended. Since I'm not really working on a diagonal anymore, I don't just want a straight line there on a horizontal. And now I'm going to repeat the same exact steps on the opposite side of the head. Now what I'm going to be doing is taking the tail of my comb and just taking out about 1/4 inch of hair around her hairline and clipping it off to the side. These hairs are going to lift really fast and they can be kind of fragile, so I just want to get them out of the way. And what I'm going to do is go in roughly and start on a diagonal on either side. It doesn't matter which side you start on. Keep in mind that with this mohawk section, what you really want to do is make sure that the part is centered. So you want there to be about an even amount of hair on either side of the part, and I am just working at a slight diagonal right now. And my sections here are getting closer together. This is really important. We want lots of brightness in this area. In this case, she doesn't want to see a ton of dimension. So the reason why we are working on a slight diagonal is because we aren't doing a smudge, and what this is going to do is just allow it to look really nice and natural, and it's not going to be stripy at all. So the diagonal that I am working on is slight. It's not super diagonal. It's just ever so slightly. And this is just going to allow for a really seamless blend. Once I get 4 or 5 foils in this way, and my sections are small, so these sections that I'm taking, I'm not leaving out a ton of hair in between because I'm going for maximum amount of blonde and blend here. And I want this to lift evenly with the rest of the hair. I've moved on to 20 volume at this point. Once I do 4 or 5 on this side, I am going to switch to the opposite side and just start doing the same thing, working on a diagonal. You can backcomb some of them a very little bit. It'll just help with blend and kind of diffuse the line a little bit, but you don't have to do that. It's not necessary. So you'll see I am going in here and taking my diagonals. The slices that I'm taking are fine. I would be able to read through them. So I'm working with 20 volume right now, but the rest of the head I did with 10. And this area is what's going to take me the longest with this whole process. However, since we're not doing a smudge, you're saving time on that. And by not overfoiling the sides or the back, you're also saving time. So what I'll be doing is kind of creating a triangle in the middle of that section. So you can see that what's left is a triangle. And it's all going to come together kind of like a puzzle. You don't want anything to be super precise or exact. We just want it to be really, really blended out. And I'm continuing to work diagonally here, not leaving out a ton of hair, kind of actually ignoring where the part is. We just want to make sure that we're going diagonal on that part line. And once we do a number of these on this side, we'll switch to the other side, and we're just going to kind of keep doing that until the sides meet together. And because these sections are so fine, you don't necessarily need to paint the opposite side. See, and now I am back on the opposite side of the head, and the goal is to just kind of marry these sections together. So I'm going to do a couple of more on this side before switching to the back of the head. Now, hang tight. I know this is kind of a little bit confusing, so I drew a messy diagram for you guys that I have in here that I will show you exactly how this mohawk section is supposed to work out. So there's going to be a little corner there. So you'll see I'm picking it up. So I'm standing in the back, but we're going to go to one side of that triangle, and we are going to take a diagonal. So I'm really working on the side of the head right now. And I am working diagonally. Don't worry, I'm going to have a sketch for you at the end of this to show you, because I know it's a little bit difficult to follow, but it's so hard to film the top of the head and actually show you how everything is working out. So the diagram is just the best bet for us. But again, everything here in this top section is going to be on diagonal, so it doesn't matter exactly how you do that. Just all that matters is that we are meeting everything together diagonally. And once I do this, I'm going to move back to that opposite side of the head and just work diagonally again and meet it all together. And again, we're just going to be meeting it all together on a diagonal. It doesn't have to be perfect. Really, I want you to think of it kind of as a puzzle. And again, I drew you a really rough diagram, but I just wanted to get my point across, and I will be around doing lives to answer any questions for you. Now I know that this is a little sloppy, but because I did it by hand, but this is what it should look like. All diagonals on that top mohawk section. And I'm going to repeat this around her head. So these are the pieces around the ear, the front hairline. So I want to do this along the entire front hairline. Again, I'm working with 20 volume. They're not going to be sitting for very long. I did leave out the short little hairs in the front. And I am weaving right now. And I'm using a smaller brush because these pieces are so dainty. I'm using a much more narrow painting brush. This one's from Pravana. And I'm just really tapping that lightener on. Once I'm lifted to a level 9, I am going to go in with these toners. So what I have here is the Pulp-Rite high-speed toners that I'm putting in nice and even. And I'm going to be combing them through with my Olivia Garden eye blend brush. So I mix together equal parts clear, violet, and icy to create a look where she still has a little tiny bit of warmth to it. That's what the clear is going to do. It's really going to cut out. These are going to process within 10 minutes. And most lines do have express toners. Now this is our finished look. You can see we've got lots of brightness, still a little bit of dimension there in the back. Up here, it's so nice and blended. She is still obsessed with it. She texts me about it all the time. There's still a little bit of dimension up there in that mohawk area.